What's good, everyone? Hope y'all doing alright. This week's video is on the biggest what ifs in boxing. So pretty much matchups that fell apart or key events that changed the path of one's career. With that being said, let's start the video. With the loss of many household names and pound-for-pound faces, Nonito Donaire in early 2013 and Manny Pacquiao losing twice in 2012, with the uncertainty of the future of his career, Adrian Broner would be propped up in the pound-for-pound ranks, peaking at number 6 to start the year off. Broner would end the 2012 year off defeating the WBC lightweight champion Antonio DeMarco, completely outclassing him to put him away in the 8th round.
Well, it looks almost like he's trying to tire Broner out by taking punches.
Down goes DeMarco on a swinging left hook.
And they're waving a white flag.
Broner would be ranked number 1 at lightweight. He'll start off 2013 beating number 6 ranked Gavin Reese. In a turn of events, Paulie Malignaggi will pull off an upset and win the WBA welterweight title. Since Paulie is clearly a target, this was a perfect addition for Broner to capture another title and another weight class to get closer to Floyd Mayweather in the rankings, as there was no definite number 2 to number 5 at that moment. Broner would move up and defeat Paulie by split decision. Now the plans were Broner was to go back down to lightweight. This was simply a one-off fight where Broner becomes a 3-belt champion and the building of his brand. But we would see him go for it all, trying to establish himself as a welterweight, which ended up being a huge turning point in his career, to where we never saw him in these ranks again. And now in this scenario here, Broner goes back down to lightweight after the Paulie fight. Since Broner's established based on numbers from the Paulie fight, cementing he's the underboss to Mayweather, making him the cash cow, he can now set up his own sweepstakes fights at lightweight. Politically, Broner was in a great position to unify the entire weight class. He could have faced WBO champion and number 4 ranked Ricky Burns, number 5 ranked WBA champion Richard Abril, and by that time, IBF champion Miguel Vazquez's top-ranked contract would have expired, meaning Broner can go on to become undisputed at lightweight. If Broner didn't fight Maidana in November, Andre Ward leaves boxing, Marquez loses, and that would put Sergio Martinez at number 2 and Adrian Broner at number 3 to end the 2013 year off. Martinez loses to Cotto in 2014 instead of Vazquez fighting Mickey Bay to be dethroned at the end of 2014. It's Broner fighting Vazquez for undisputed to end the year off and start the 2015 year off number 2 pound for pound, right below Floyd Mayweather at number 1. Before we continue with the video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because a lot of viewing is not subscribed. I appreciate everyone showing love and contributing to getting the video out there. Big shout out to early viewers that come in, that make it easier for the rest to view to keep this channel running. Every single like will protect VQ motor vehicles from being totaled at your local sideshows, even though they sound like trumpets and can be annoying under the wrong exhaust setup. We must protect this dwindling species at all costs, so it won't end up like the 240SX. Thanks for sticking around, and let's get back to the video. This was the most meaningful matchup in the back half of the 2010s. Haye-Fury will make one of the best career turnarounds, becoming the WBC lightweight champion. The WBC would strip Linares under odd circumstances. He had injured his hand and couldn't defend his title, so they just stripped him, and the vacant title was fought between Mamami and Dejan, then picked up in the next fight by Mikey Garcia. Linares, once he recovered, unified against Anthony Crolla for the WBA ring and lineal titles. And for some reason this fight was fought for the useless WBC diamond belt. If you are awarded this belt, it's because you got screwed over by them. By the end of 2017, Linares had re-established his name stateside, and Garcia had become bigger in his return to boxing, capturing the title. This matchup made the most sense within hardcore fans. Linares was the mandatory. Garcia was actually finished with his contract, so politically he could fight him. There is no divide here between networks.
You want to unify the division. We know Mikey Garcia's watching back in the States. Is that a fight that you want next?
Mira, la verdad que me encanta la idea de volver nuevamente al mercado americano, pelear en Showdown, y le doy gracias a Showdown por pasar esta gran pelea. Quiero las peleas grandes, quiero pelear con los mejores. Ya salí de este compromiso con Anthony Kroll, ahora quiero los mejores. Los mejores. Mike Garcia, Lomachenko, el que sea.
Besides money, Garcia wanted this fight as a one-fight deal. If he wins, he can go back to Showtime with the belts. From my memory, that was agreed upon by Golden Boy. However, Showtime offered Garcia a lot of money and a big show. Garcia rejects the unification, goes to Showtime exclusively. Linares, desperate for a big money fight, a big legacy fight, takes a massive risk, agrees to fight rising pound-for-pound star Vasyl Lomachenko. Garcia unifies against Easter, then takes a $3 million purse to fight Errol Spence Jr., which became one of the biggest mismatches at this level in the weight class to end the decade off. Garcia was never the same after that despite the huge payout and would retire just 2 fights later. Linares would give Vasyl a run for his money, but lose, then have a failed title run at 140 pounds and lose to Haney for the title, then lastly lose in key setup fights to fight for the title again, then retire from the sport in 2023. Now, if Mikey did take the fight, he could have very well won against Linares, unify against Easter for a lot more money, and then pursued an undisputed unification against Jorge Pedraza, and then a mega fight, a passing of a torch fight against Gervonta Davis for a lot of money. This is definitely a case of short-term gains, long-term loss. Mikey really could have done something great and made a lot of money than he did if he'd taken the risk against Linares. Now, this is just a rumor from what I've heard from a friend/insider from that time period. He was complaining about HBO meddling with the matchmaking of fights, which coming into the 2010s, it was blatantly obvious that they were using their influence of playing the role of matchmaker, which threw a monkey wrench at certain fighters' careers like Sergio Martinez. Allegedly, if you put things together, you can tie HBO to Martinez getting stripped of the WBC title because of HBO refusing to allow the fight with him and the WBC mandatory Sebastian Zvick to go through, saying it's not HBO worthy. Then wanted him to face Sergey Zinzurek instead, which later they would take zero accountability and say this fight as well was not HBO worthy, all while propping up, promoting, and airing Julio Cesar Chavez, the godson of the WBC president, to fight Sebastian Zvick on HBO just a couple months later.
He didn't say not worthy to fight Sergio Martinez. He said he was not worthy to be on their network. A few months later, after he basically forces the issue and Sergio Martinez is now stripped of his title, unfortunately, and to fight the fighter that HBO wanted him to fight, they then turn around and they approve Sebastian Zvick to make a title defense on HBO in a main event against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Then to ruin Paul Williams' comeback, Williams was supposed to face Nobuhito Ishida after getting brutally put away by Martinez. Nobuhito just came off a massive win, defeating undefeated James Kirkland. What I think a fabricated outrage was made. HBO making Williams' team change opponents, which led to Arislandi Lara filling in that role. With all that being said, I was not surprised after hearing this story. Brandon Rios, after his loss to Pacquiao, would come back, have a strange DQ win against Diego Chavez, and go on to stop Mike Alvarado in 3 rounds for the WBO international title. Ruslan Provodnikov, after coming off a close defeat, getting dethroned by Chris Algieri for the WBO junior welterweight title, Provodnikov would have a homecoming fight in Russia, retiring Jose Luis Castillo in 5 rounds. He will then be in a banger show against Lucas Matisse, losing by majority decision. Ruslan would move up to Rios' weight class following after the Matisse loss. According to the guy, Top Rank had set up Ruslan Provodnikov versus Brandon Rios. Stylistically, this is a fight of the year right here. This has Gaddy Ward written all over it. As much as HBO loves to constantly bring up this fight as a quality standard of getting your money's worth as a HBO subscriber or a ticket buyer, they didn't want this matchup. They had something else in mind. They wanted Brandon Rios instead, which on paper sounds absolutely stupid. Bradley is a fast, agile guy that can outbox but also walk you down and make it dirty. Brandon Rios is dirt ass slow. To his credit, has a high output, but he's just too slow. And now at welterweight, he does not have the physical advantages of imposing size and strength to bully a guy like Bradley around. Stylistically, this is going to be another Pacquiao-like beatdown for Rios. So us fans miss out on another Gaddy Ward we get an absolute mismatch. Teddy Atlas doing the fireman speech, and Bradley getting his first stoppage in God knows how long. Rios was never the same after that at this level of the sport. Ruslan would just be squeezed out of the business and leave the sport awfully young after losing to John Molina for the WBO International title in 2016. With Leonard in retirement, newly crowned undisputed champion Donald Curry was next in line to become the next biggest thing. He reached out to Leonard for advice. Curry wanted to face Marvin Hagler for that middleweight title. Leonard advised he should not face Hagler. Shortly after giving Curry this advice, Leonard would proceed to announce he would be coming out of retirement to only fight Marvin Hagler.
I want to do, Marvin wants it also, but I'm not making an announcement. I'm just saying I would fight him. I'm not coming back to fight to have a career. I've had a career. I want something that's going to give me what I want. That's Marvin. I would fight him.
Leonard goes on to beat Marvin Hagler, making him even more into a superstar. With Curry not taking the fight, he would go on to face Lloyd Cunningham and lose the undisputed title, then to lose to Mike McCallum for the WBA title. Curry would become champ once again, but never got to that level of stardom if he had went ahead and faced Marvin Hagler. Leonard saw something in the Mugabe fight where he saw that Hagler was now beatable in his eyes. Do you think Donald Curry would have been able to defeat Hagler given the situation he may have started his decline? Leave in the comments. In 1988, the undisputed cruiserweight champion Evander Holyfield would begin his transition to become a full-fledged heavyweight due to the foundation laid out by Mackie Shilstone, who paved the way for these jumps in weight. It did not take long for Holyfield to become a heavyweight. His first fight, he was at 202. By the time he was in title contention, he was a solid 208 pounds. Holyfield was the #1 contender to face Mike Tyson. The contract and everything was signed and good to go, with Tyson set to make the largest fight purse in boxing at a whopping $22 million and the challenger Holyfield at $11 million. All Tyson had to do was get past pretty much a tune-up title defense against contender James Buster Douglas. The 42-1 underdog would shock many and knock Tyson out in the 10th round.
Get in the shot that will finish things in.
Oh, the uppercut.
What an uppercut by Douglas, and down goes Tyson.
It's over. It's over.
Mike Tyson has been knocked.
Tyson would have one chance to get Douglas out of there, dropping him in the 8th round. Douglas would get up and be saved by the bell.
Here he's against the ropes. I've never seen.
And there's a right hand uppercut, and down goes Douglas. As suddenly as that.
Can he beat the count?
He got a little overconfident. Got a little loosey-goosey. Still wobbly. Let's see what Mike can do to finish. And
Despite Tyson putting everything into that punch to get him out of there, if Tyson had just 30 seconds left, he may have had a chance to finish Douglas, thus salvaging the Holyfield showdown in Atlantic City. How would the early heavyweight form of Holyfield fare up against a motivated 1990 Mike Tyson? Who do you have winning? Leave in the comments. In January 2009, Shane Mosley would shock the boxing world, turning back the clock and beating the brakes off Antonio Margarito to become the WBA welterweight champion, shooting him up to #1 in the rankings. Andre Berto, who was groomed to be the next biggest star to fight Floyd Mayweather, defeat Luis Collazo in a narrow thriller, then to defeat IBF Junior welterweight champion Juan Urango. Floyd later in the 2009 year would announce his comeback to boxing. The Mayweather versus Mosley fight was certainly on the top of boxing fans' list.
Shane Mosley, who got 5 losses, that's the one you're talking about?
Shane Mosley, the guy who totally dismantled Antonio Margarito.
He beat Cotto, and Cotto beat him. All these guys beating each other, but nobody has beat Floyd Mayweather.
He's the champ right now.
Answer the question.
He's the champ right now. He's the champ in your old weight class,
A belt
Floyd.
don't make me. A belt don't make me.
But he's a champ in your weight class. You're going after a guy 2 weight classes lighter. A great fighter. He's a great fighter, Floyd.
You're right. Shane Mosley is the only guy I know. Guess what? He's not a pay-per-view attraction.
However, the next best option while things were building up was the WBC champion Andre Berto to unify against the WBA champion Shane Mosley. A deal was finally made for January 30th, 2010. On January 12, 2010, Berto's home country would get hit by a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Berto, who has family in Haiti, would drop everything and rush to his home country to help with aid. This fight would get canceled days later, officially on the 19th, after Berto was mentally and physically exhausted.
That smell was intense. It was 10 times worse than any garbage can or any dumpster that I've ever smelled. It was smell of rotten flesh, and I'll never forget that smell.
Me and my brother went there, we went straight to work.
For 5 days, Andre and Cleveland worked with Dr. Barth Green and Project Metashare.
If the earthquake never happened and everything went according to schedule, who would win, Mosley or Berto? Floyd had 2 chances to become undisputed at welterweight. The first time wasn't really his fault. Zab Judah, the undisputed welterweight champion, slept on Carlos Baldomir, came in heavily underprepared, and lost it all. This time around, almost 10 years later, coming into 2015, Floyd was in a perfect position. He held the WBA, WBC, and ring titles. He was set to face WBO champion Manny Pacquiao. A win here, he would have 3 belts, and all that would be left is Kell Brook with the IBF. The problem here is, outside of the Porter fight, no one knows who Kell Brook is. So Brook for the longest was trying to get a fight with Amir Khan, while Khan is trying to get a fight with Floyd Mayweather. But little Khan knew he needed Brook to get a Mayweather fight, so really they needed each other here, but a lot of nothing happened. No fight was made. Floyd pretty much said neither guy is worthy. Didn't pay for the WBO sanctioning fees to keep the belt after beating Manny, and the rest is history. Now if Khan wasn't so blind and fought Brook before the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, who would have won between prime Brook and Khan? And who do you have between Mayweather versus the winner of Brook versus Khan? Leave in the comments. After the horrid Klitschko fight, Haye would come back big in his first fight back, knocking out David Chisora in the 3rd round. A huge promotion was set up for Haye to face rising star Tyson-Fury. Given David Haye's reputation with big fights and injuries, Haye would once again get injured, which led to the fight getting postponed and moved to February 8th. Just 2 months later, Haye would get injured again, this time involving his shoulder. The fight would get cancelled. Haye needed to get surgery, which he'll be advised to retire from boxing altogether. Even after winning the title in 2015, Fury was still pissed at the situation, vowing to never give Haye a shot at the title. If no injuries took place, I thought this was the best version of David Haye in 2013. Who do you have winning between the two? Haye or Fury? Leave in the comments. In 2017, Joshua would take over the division incredibly fast, dethroning IBF champion Charles Martin, then to unify against Vladimir Klitschko. In 2018, Joshua would pick up the last of the available titles, beating Joseph Parker for the WBO. All that's left is Deontay Wilder in the WBC. Earlier in a make-or-break fight, Wilder defeats Luis Ortiz in the 10th round. The money, the power is in Europe. Joshua has 3 belts to Wilder's 1, and he's backed up by much more financial backers than Wilder. So Team Joshua would want this fight in the UK, preferably at Wembley. However, Wilder's people want it in America. Deals were sent out from both parties with neither coming to agreement. Joshua has full leverage on Team Wilder. Team Wilder would backtrack and pursue a fight with the lineal champion Tyson-Fury. Fury recovering from heavy substance abuse and went under an insane weight loss transformation in a short period of time. On paper, this is an easy fight for Wilder. He'll be the lineal champion, which puts him above Joshua, where he can command a better contract and to have the fight in America, because by lineage, Wilder is a true champion of the weight class. However, this fails horribly. The fight goes to a draw, and now Wilder has to deal with having a rematch with Fury, which later turned into a blessing in disguise as Joshua would lose which elevated Wilder to the top 2 in the rankings and Fury as well, so the winner of the rematch would not only be for the lineal, but also the ring title as well. Fury would go on to win, thus making this into even more of a failure. So if all this never happened, Joshua and Wilder agreed to fight in late 2018 or early 2019, who do you have winning and why? Leave in the comments. In December 2019, Joshua regained the titles he lost to Ruiz in the rematch. Just a couple months later in 2020, Tyson-Fury would defeat Deontay Wilder in their rematch for the WBC ring and lineal titles. In 2021, the talks of Fury versus Joshua was made for the undisputed heavyweight title, making it a historic matchup between 2 fighters from the UK, and certainly be the biggest fight in UK boxing history. Wilder is refusing to step aside and all kinds of other nonsense, stepping in between a historic matchup, which ultimately it got canned because of Wilder, and Fury had to fly over to America to face Wilder once more in October, and Joshua now had to face his mandatory Alexander Usyk in September. Fury would once again beat Wilder, however Usyk was too much for Joshua, and once again Joshua gets dethroned. If Joshua won against Usyk in the first fight, the Fury fight was back on for the following year. However, Joshua would have to fight Usyk in a rematch, and he will lose the rematch, and we will never see an undisputed unification between 2 Brits at the Wembley Stadium. Certainly a cultural event beyond our imagination that we'll never get to see. If the fight took place in 2021, who do you have winning, Fury or Joshua? Leave in the comments. And on top of that, this is the biggest what ifs in boxing. Be sure to like, share, and if you're new, subscribe to the Patreon for Patreon-backed projects and early access. This project being on the tale of Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton. I'm Alpha Sancho, and I'm out.